Okay, seeing that it's 6:30 now, I think we can get started. So good evening and welcome everyone to this hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for the City of Ottawa, pursuant to the Planning Act. Bonjour et bienvenue à cette audience du Comité de dérogation de la Ville d'Ottawa en vertu de la Loi sur l'aménagement du territoire. Cette audience se tiendra en anglais ce soir, mais si vous souhaitez faire des soumissions en français, nous ferons de notre mieux pour vous accommoder. En même temps, je sais que nous avons l'interprétation en place pour les examens 5 et 6 qu'on va entendre assez tôt dans l'agenda ce soir. So this hearing is live streaming and will be archived on YouTube. With me are my fellow panel members, Kathleen Willis and Stan Wilder. My name is Scott Hindle, and I will be chairing this hearing this evening. So listed on the agenda and which appeared on the screen before we began are the applications we'll be hearing today. For the sake of efficiency, the committee may deal with agenda items in a different order. For the hearing today, and to save time and to ensure a thorough review of applications, committee members have reviewed the planning reports and written submissions in advance. Today, we will hear oral submissions from any interested parties. The committee may ask for a brief presentation from the applicants to explain what's being requested, followed by questions from members and submissions for the public. For applications the committee is comfortable with already, we may not need a presentation and we'll jump straight into questions. When it's your application or we open the floor to the public comments, and if you'd like to make a comment or submission to the committee, raise your hand in Zoom and the committee coordinator will let you into the virtual hearing room. Note that there is a small delay bringing you into the hearing. That's normal. For those on the phone, raise your hand by pressing *9 and toggle mute and unmute with *6. When I call on you, please start with your name, spelling it if necessary, and provide your municipal address for the record. The committee limits presentations to 5 minutes, and any exceptions will be at my discretion. I remind you to be respectful, mute yourself when not speaking, and to avoid speaking to issues that are beyond this committee's very narrow mandate. This includes things like aspects of the proposal that do not require variances, noise, pollution, property maintenance, and property values. As part of the statutory public notification requirements, each applicant was required to post a sign on the property and file a statutory declaration confirming the sign posting. This declaration must be on file today before we can hear the application. If necessary, I'll administer a formal oath by reading out a question to the applicant. You just have to respond with either I swear or I affirm. There's no legal difference between the responses. Swearing confirms your declaration to God versus affirming, which is against your conscience. If there are any edits or clarifications to the details of the application, I'll read those out first and ask the applicants or their agent to confirm that the changes are correct. If you have questions or concerns about the proposed conditions outlined in the planning staff report, best to raise them early. Finally, a written decision from today's hearing will be issued within 10 days and is subject to a 20-day appeal period. If you'd like to have a copy of the decision, please contact committee staff. All right then, so proceeding with the agenda for this evening, I'll begin with asking if there are any declarations of interest from the panel members. No? Okay, so seeing none, the committee has received a request to adjourn a couple of items, so we'll start with that. First up is items number 2 and 3. That's 1353, 1354 McMahon, and 1349 Ridgedale. So I think it's Mr. Segretto. There he is.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, committee members.
Welcome. So I understand that this one, we had an issue with the circulation that was sent on the committee's side. So I understand that we have to do a new recirculation.
That's yeah.
I'm assuming you want to go as quickly as possible.
Please.
For obvious reasons. Okay, so I have June 6th, I think, is the earliest, unfortunately, that we can make, given how late it was caught.
That's fair. That's fine.
Unfortunately, yeah. I'd love to deal with you today, but it sounds like our legislative requirements haven't been met, so that's a pretty hard one. Right, okay, so we'll do that. So I'll open the floor, though, to any questions or open to the members of the public. who may want to speak either for or against this adjournment request to the June 6th meeting of this committee? Okay, and seeing none, seeing no hands raised, I'll call the question to members of the committee. All those in favor of an adjournment to June 6th? Okay, so Mr. Scretta, we'll see you then.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And next up, we have an adjournment request for items number 8 and 9. That's 303 and 305 Poulain. So I think the agent I have listed is Hugh Vo.
Yes. I'm here. Do I need
Perfect.
per se?
No, so I think sounds like we have the same issue with your application, unfortunately. It was a committee error, it sounds like, on the circulation.
Yes.
But it sounds like it was caught early enough that we're able to get you on the May 17th meeting. Does that work?
Yep. I have the new signs and they're up as well.
Perfect. Okay, so I will open up the floor to anyone in the public or members of the panel who would like to speak either for or against this adjournment request to May 17th. And all right, seeing no hands raised, I'll call the matter for a vote then. So all in favor of an adjournment to May 17th. And that's unanimous. All right, so we will see this application then on May 17th. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so now moving into the applications themselves, given that we do have simultaneous interpretation for items number 5 and 6, that's 14 and 16 Gould, we'll start there. And I have the agent listed as Joseph Vahidi.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and see you.
Hi, thank you. Mr. Chairman, yes, we are before you for this application 14 and 16 Gould. As we receive a couple of comments from the City of Ottawa, from Committee of Adjustment. I think there is no issue with the, the side setback and also the rear setback. But there were concern regarding the parking for number 14, as well as the attached garage for number 16. So you have our file before you
Mr.
now.
Chair, the oath needs to be administered.
Yes. All right, so Mr. Vahidi, why don't we do that? We'll get the oath out of the way and then we can jump into a quick presentation from you about the issues. So I'll read it to you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing as instructed and was clearly visible and legible during that time?
Yes, I do confirm, and I did send a picture to the Mrs. Propit.
Perfect.
The date that I posted.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
I don't know that we are requesting a full presentation this evening, but yes, why don't you continue with the outline of your response to kind of the staff comments, and then we can go from there.
Sure. Well, number 14 house, number 14 Gould, which has a kind of a couch house, which is considered as a garage now. We have a kind of the front and the attached garage on this street, about 7 of them. It's number 5, number 16, number 17, number 18, number 20, and number 26. These are all, as you have the picture, if you want, I can bring it up. But those are all front, the attached garage. And since the policy has changed, So I do understand it, but still it is the strong point on that block, because there are kind of the dominant streetscape character currently is the front attached parking garage, because there are number 10, number 8, number 6, and number 4 that they do not have a parking. They do park on a street that, like that's another kind of this, the dominant things. And then there is number 9, number 17, number 22, that they are a bigger lot, and they have however, they still park in the front of their property. Most of the people on that street, they park in the front of the property. So because of that, we requested to have to the committee allow us to park in the front of number 14 as well. If you look at number 10, we have our property line is number 10, 8, 4, and 6 and 4. We have 2 feet of that property belongs to us. Like on these are not the pictures there. I'm sorry, just let me see. Bring it up here there for the number. Just 1 second here. So anyhow, so number 6, number 10, it's 2 feet of the garage belongs to our property in terms of the setback. Still, we have no objection to that. If you look at the picture with the white Subaru parking in the front, and you look at the pin, in the front of the driveway, there's about 2 feet of that property line belongs to us. And they have no garage in the back. They have a shed. It's not a garage. They cannot even, they put there only their snowblower. So the same with number 8 and 6 and 4. I think number 4 might have access from the western street. So because of that, we are requiring to have the same thing. Otherwise, we have to follow the grandfather law and park there. For number 16, we would like to have the attached garage, because in the back, we cannot have the rear back garage, because number 14 already is a new build. It's about 4 years old. And if we want to put in the back of the number 14 and number 16, we cannot, the garage is going to come very close to the living area. So it's impossible. And what we are doing here between the number 14 and number 16, it's just we are following the official plan in terms of the intensification, and we are going to kind of do a facelift for that number 16 and put a new unit the same as 18 and 20. So this is we think it's a minor variance in nature, and we hope you guys can consider it.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll open up the floor to members of the panel if there are any questions.
Can we hear from the planner on this application, Mr. Chair? I'd like to
go
hear
ahead.
planning's comment on this. You've heard from the applicant. What is the planning department's position with regards to the front yard park, with the front-facing garages, front yard parking?
So it's Ms. Kelly.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So in response to the minor variance to permit the front-facing attached garage, I'd like to clarify that based on the streetscape character analysis that was completed as part of the application, 15 properties were reviewed or surveyed, and 10 of the properties did not feature front-facing and attached garages. So the conclusion was that front-facing attached garages were not the dominant streetscape character of the street. The intent of the zoning bylaw is essentially to prohibit attributes that are not reflective of the dominant streetscape character. Therefore, it's staff's opinion that a variance to permit a front-facing attached garage does not meet the intent of the zoning bylaw. I can also, is there another question or?
No, that's fine. I was just going to ask, the applicant is saying that there is no other alternative in terms of addressing the parking. I just want to know what your opinion is of that. Any alternatives?
Yes, based on staff's review, the applicant could probably reconfigure the site and have a shared driveway leading to rear yard parking spaces. That doesn't mean that they'd be able to accommodate a garage, but they might be able to fit a rear yard parking space. I'll also note that in this area of the city, parking's not required, so there is the option to provide no parking on site, which would maintain the intent of the zoning bylaw and the streetscape character.
Thank you for that.
Ms. Willis, any questions? Okay, so given that, I think I'll open it up to the members of the public now to either speak either for or against this application. So a reminder once again, just to raise your hand in Zoom and we'll be able to bring you in. All right, I see one called Maroizo. If you want to unmute.
Yes, good evening. My name is Olivier Marois. I'm resident at 279 Spencer Street.
Great.
Just for, maybe I can give a bit of context. I only have 5 minutes, but I just want to flag that there's been significant development in the area at 276, 278 Spencer Street, and all within Gould, Spencer, Western, and Carlton. At 276, 278 Spencer Street, at 26 Gould, as Mr. Vaidi has indicated, as well as 18 and 20 Gould. That has all been done recently. I believe that Mr. Vaidi was involved in one capacity or another in those development. So I'm personally concerned about the development, which doesn't seem to be well planned. Every time a lot is split, we are losing street parking because to allow for access to parking for these new lots, it is having an impact on the street. There is less and less street parking. And you'll notice that in the area, there is a church at the corner of Carlton and Spencer, which is quite busy on Sundays. We're also close to a mosque. And in cases of festivities, there is parking, vehicle or parked in our area. We're also close to commercial establishments, as you well know, on the Wellington. And there's also federal servants that park in the area. So parking is limited, and every lot that is split reduces the availability of parking on the street and complicates traffic. Another issue that I have is that the densification, in my opinion, risks increasing fire hazard. Because I know that Mr. Vaidi pointed out to a variety of houses where the variance or the side setbacks were small. But it's my understanding that these properties were built when this was the town of Kitchissippi and when the existing bylaws did not exist. And I'm not sure why we would revert back to these times when the new bylaws were created for a reason. I'm also concerned about the ongoing disturbances as well as trespassing due to these development. The practice of the developers is to fully excavate the property all the way to the property lines, oftentimes to meet their health and safety requirement. They are required to put fencing on the adjacent properties and they trespass on the other properties. And the very narrow side yard setback that is proposed, which is 60 centimeters, does not allow builders to actually build the properties properly without the fencing having to be set on adjacent properties. It's impossible to build a property within a 2 feet wide area. I've seen that time and time again, and particularly at 276, 278 Spencer Street, right across my property. I'm also concerned with the rear setback variance. It's causing a lot of privacy to residents. That might not be a concern for developers, but it is a concern for residents that choose to live there. The new builds are far closer to the adjacent properties than the old builds. And I'm not sure why the city tolerates this. And I'm also extremely worried about the loss of canopy. All these developments have caused the loss of trees. Trees that are located close to the property line are generally negatively impacted by the excavation and need to be taken down and don't survive the work. And there's a number of trees in the areas that have had to be taken down. And there are very large mature oak trees on my property. And I'm concerned with the impact of this development on those. And those trees, if I have to take them down, will cost me a lot of funding as well as loss of enjoyment of my property, which is already being impacted by this extreme densification, which, just for the record, I've tolerated this for years, but I think at this point, it's becoming a bit of a problem. And finally, the last question, which is for the committee, is that zoning bylaws are established for a reason and to achieve specific city planning objectives. In my opinion, any departure from the city established requirements should not be approved by the committees absent a clear understanding of the impacts of variance, as well as a clear plan and strategy to mitigate these impacts. I haven't seen any justification why these amendments should be made. I haven't seen any justification as to why this is required and why the property needs to be split, or why the proposed dwellings are being developed in such a size that require these types of variances. And my last concern is that once this is approved, it's up to the residents to deal and handle with these developers. And we usually get very little backing from the city or any recourse that's possible. And we're left to our own, device, and it's a problem.
Okay, great. Thank you for your extensive comments, and I think fairly clearly and well articulated. I know there's some of those comments there I think are unfortunately outside of our jurisdiction, so you'll understand we'll have to take those with a grain of salt. Obviously, for instance, the idea of trespassing onto other people's properties, that is a private trespass matter between individual private landowners. So it'd be incumbent on the builder to make those agreements and understandings with neighboring property owners if that becomes an issue for constructability and that kind of thing. And I will mention, obviously, our body exists because I think zoning is often a rule that applies across the city, and it doesn't always necessarily make sense in every single circumstance. So, our body exists specifically to allow variances to zoning where they've been articulated to us as either making sense or being part of a logical evolution of the zoning that may easily be decades old. So I'll leave it at that. Are there any questions or comments from other members of the panel in response to those questions and those comments? No? Okay. Great. Thank you so much. So I'll open it up then to any others before we go back to the applicant. If there's anyone else that would like to speak either for or against this application, I invite you to raise your hand and come forward now. Okay, seeing none, I think we'll jump back to Joseph Fahidi then for a quick response, and then I think we can go to further questions from the panel and likely a vote.
Well, Mr. Chairman, regarding first of all, we have a supporting letters of our neighborhood, as well as what you call it, the Wellington Village. We did a good job in that neighborhood in terms of 276 down Spencer, as well as Westboro. We have no objection from the neighbors, or we did not cause any inconvenience to anyone. So we are doing our job. We are taking pride in what we are doing. And regarding the parking, he's right. There is lots of street parking there. Therefore, That's why we want to have a attached garage parking, so we don't have to park on the street. And regarding the street escape that Mrs. Kelly pointed out, it is kind of, like yes and no, because, as I say, we have 7 houses that they have a front garage, a front garage attached to the houses. And those are 26, 18, 5, 16, 17, and 20. So, and there are the rest from 10, 8, 6, and 4. They have no garages. And those are not what you call it, the dominant street escape, dominant figure. Therefore, it's something in between. And what we are doing there, we are following the kind of to make sure that the cars are parked in the garage and there is nothing, like street parking. And that's why we asked for number 14. If it's okay that number 10, number 8, number 6, and number 4, they are parking in the front, why we cannot park there? And therefore, we are asking for that kind of minor variance. And for the 16th, we have a attached garage. And the same as I say, if you split it, it is a split. It's a kind of, like 7 of them has it. 5 of them, they don't have a parking and in the back, and become 12. And number 9 and 17 and 23, just like they have only 3 of them that they park because they have a bigger lot. One of the lot is 60 by 100, and the other lot is a kind of 50 by 100, and it's a bungalow in the back. And so based on future need, as they say, the Ontario, what you call it, Bill 23, they need 1.5 million houses. And so we are following that pattern. We are not doing something to kind of not match the street escape, but we are just asking for something that it goes with the flow of the street. And regarding the rear garage, they say, okay, we already have 8 feet between number 14. We respected the setback on the eastern side to go back, but there will be no green space for the family who are going to live there. If it's going to be my daughter or if it's going to someone else, so it's going to be ruining the green area. So why don't we keep the same pattern it is and, consider our application for the attached garage as well as the parking. So regarding the the houses are, as our friends say, they are about 100 years old. And if there will be a future development, so they are going to have something to, for sure they are going to refer to Bill 23, that there will be, more intensification. So what we are asking with the Bill 23 to become a law in even Ottawa, it's not going to be far. It's, another 5 months or so. So we are asking very modest kind of variances. And we have the supporting letter from the, our neighbors. Those people that they are senior, they say, Joseph, we support your job. We have no objection, but we don't want to be part of it. So just, go ahead and do whatever you have to do. You are doing a good job. The neighbors, they believe in it. And also we have no objection. And those people, they didn't want to sign or anything because as a courtesy, we went to their door, we delivered the plan, we delivered the, say what our intention. And the only thing we are going to do, we are going to take that coach house, which is kind of, it doesn't fit now to the neighborhood, to have a nice kind of detached house, like the number 18, number 20, and so on. And on that street, again, we have lots of property that they are only 25 feet, even 23 feet. And as you know, the setback in some area is 1.2 meter, and in some area is only 2 feet, not even a meter between the houses. So our request is in nature, like they are in nature minor. But I mean, we are here to work with you guys and see what we can do, because this is what we want to see at the end of the day.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I think we've heard, doesn't look like there's any other hands from the members of the public, from anyone that hasn't already spoken. So I'll put one last mention out to the members of the panel if there's any follow-up questions or concerns. Otherwise, I think we'll go to a vote. Okay, so I think in this case, we'll start with the minor variances. So I'll call the question. All those in favor of the minor variances in this case? Okay, so we have 2 in favor. Mr. Wilder, do you want to speak to either dissenting on all the minor variances, or if you wanted to split that dissent?
No, I'm I'm going to oppose I'm going to oppose, I appreciate what Mr. Vahidi says, but, I also believe that not every unit has to have parking. We're getting a lot of intensification. This is inner city. There's other ways to get around. So I don't believe that every single house that's being built is going to require a parking space. That's my personal opinion. In this case, I will not support. I'll dissent on variance C and variance J.
Okay, so variance C is the one related to front yard parking, and variance J to the front facing attached garage.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
I think you've provided your reasons that are clear for our decision. Now then, I'll call the matter on the consent to sever. So that's item number 6. All those in favor? So that's 3, so it's unanimous. So there you are, Mr. Vahidi. You have your approvals as requested, with the dissents noted by Member Wilder.
I have a question. So the application has approved?
Correct. Yes,
Thank
on
you.
variances and the consent have been approved, and you'll get your decision in writing within 10 days.
Thank you, sir.
Great. Thank you
Have
so
a
much,
good day.
and best of luck clearing conditions.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, so I think we'll move down the agenda, clear that out, and then we'll start back at the beginning. So we'll move on to number 7, 7 Tristan and 154 Bentley. I think in this case, I'm looking for Agent Baudry. Do we have the agent with us?
Mr. Chair, it doesn't appear that he's on the call. We'll have to reach out to him now.
Okay, so we'll step that one down to the end then, unless we hear otherwise. So then we'll jump now to number 10. That's 1486 Baseline. I have the agent listed as Kubaseki. Okay, I think I saw Caitlin Kubaseki. Yes, there you are.
Yes. Hi there.
All right, so I think I have an oath to read to you first, and then we can jump into your application. So do you
Sure.
solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing as instructed and was clearly visible and legible during that time?
Yes, I affirm.
Excellent. Perfect. So I don't think we'll need a presentation on this. This is coming back from, we've seen you before.
Yes.
So I just wanted to confirm from my end. So in this case, there's only 2 semis, a pair of semis that are being proposed at this time.
Correct. Like 1 building, 2 semis.
Right. So 1 building, 2 primary units
Yeah,
with
correct.
potentially others as associated. Okay, and then it sounds like the parking issue that was in question in the last discussion has been kind of resolved in this case.
Yep, exactly. We took the comments from the planning department, and we're all in agreement now. So
Perfect.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious because it does look like the property has been designed for future development. Are there plans for that future development at this stage?
Yep. So as of now, the homeowner is only building the 1 structure, and then I believe it's a budget issue for him. So in the future, when budget allows, he will then come back. And yeah, we do want it to be known that his plan for the future is a very similar building to this. So it's not like he's doing anything commercial or anything. It should be another residential building of some sort.
Okay, but none of that is proposed at this time.
No.
So the only variance we're requesting is the reduced lot width for unit number 1.
Correct.
Great. Okay, so I'll open up the floor to members of the committee if there are any questions. No? Okay, seeing none, then I'll open it up to the floor to anyone in the public who would like to speak either for or against this application. Now is your time to raise your hand. I see
We
Ms.
do.
Wilson.
Yes, I'll bring
Yes,
them in.
Ms. Wilson and Ms. Pratt. I think we saw there were some written comments that were provided fairly late. So I think some of us have had a chance to at least skim them, but I'll invite you then to kind of get us up to speed with your concerns on this one.
Okay, I'll start. It's Nancy Wilson. The City View Community Association would like to provide comments on the application for this build. We oppose any application that does not meet requirements of the existing bylaws. This property at 1486 Baseline does not meet the requirements. The requested variance to facilitate the development of this new semi-detached dwellings on an undersized lot does not meet the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. The infrastructure. The City View Community Association maintains that the infrastructure in City View still does not support this level of intensification. When infill occurs, lot coverage increases and the green space and trees that absorb stormwater are removed. Our community's drainage is affected. The tree report indicates that 5 of the trees will be highly impacted by construction and grading change. Any changes in grading here could affect neighbors to the rear of this property. City View has no storm sewers. The city is currently working on a plan to improve the extensive drainage issues in City View. It should be noted that this is a 10-year project dependent on availability of funds. This level of intensification also affects other infrastructure, including water and sewers. This proposal will replace a property with 1 house, probably a 3-bedroom house with not more than 2 bathrooms, probably just 1, with a proposed semi of 2 units with a total of 16 bedrooms and 12 bathrooms. This is definitely overdevelopment. The second future semi will double this. Residents on Grant Avenue behind this new build are already complaining about reduced water pressure. What's going to happen when there's 32 bedrooms and 24 bathrooms? Eventually, there will likely be 1 more semi built on the remaining 15-meter property, equaling 7.6 meters on each side, from a single house with ample parking to 32 bedrooms and 24 bathrooms and almost 0 parking. What the developer calls 2 parking spots for all of these, at least 32 plus people. Our infrastructure is already severely overburdened. We also question why there is no severance of the full semi unit from the rest of the property at this time. City engineers have advised us that there is no capacity in the storm sewer system here to run along Baseline into Pinecrest Creek. And yet these proposed infills will require increased storm sewer capacity as natural drainage will be greatly reduced. Although the official plan is mandating this type of densification, it can only be done when the services can support it. The infrastructure in this area is aged and never been upgraded. Also, the official plan recognizes that when areas are intensified, other infrastructure such as parkland, sidewalks, school capacity, traffic, cycling, walkability require updating and improvements. Our community is still waiting for any of this. Parking. There's definitely not enough parking here. 16 bedrooms will generate at least 16 residents. It is absurd to think that only 1 or 2 will have cars and have visitors without cars. Committee of Adjustment allowed severance of similar property at 1556-62 Baseline Road. The vacant lot next door to it is still providing parking for these units. We sent a picture in that you could see, so I think you've probably looked at that. There's always a number of cars parked here. This is indicative of the need for parking spaces of these types of units. Baseline Road, you can't stop on and you can't park on it. So, and it's right close to the very busy corner. City View is concerned that these new residents will be parking on our residential streets, as there's no parking on Baseline Road and no parking in the first blocks, the north-south streets, such as St. Helens Place and Pender Street in City View next to Baseline. Jill, did you want to take the trees and go from there? Or do you want me to keep going? I'll just keep going. The TRR recommends that they have been preparing to cover a severed property and new two builds. This application is for one new build on a single unsevered lot. To propose and approve any tree removals outside of this construction zone is premature. And I think this has been looked at already. Some of the trees that were on the part of the property that's not being developed were being taken out in the first tree report, but I think in the second tree report, they said that those wouldn't be touched until further development there, from what I understand. We also question why there's no severance. Okay, we've done that part. The application states that the semi is placed on the site as shown on the site plan, providing to allow the homeowner to construct a new semi dwelling at a later date when finances permit. We suggest that this could be years away or possible financing may not be available. There's no good reason to remove trees at this time. Baseline Road is currently a heat island. The city proposes tree-lined corridors to provide cooling for users of active transportation. Baseline Road needs to retain all the trees surrounding it as a major traffic route and needs trees for shade and absorption of carbon monoxide. The last point is the Baseline Road Rapid Transit Project.
The last point.
This is the last point. Jill, did you want to do this part, the Baseline Road? I'll let Jill take this over then. Jill? Do you want me to read this last point for Jill?
Sure.
Okay, Baseline Road, I'll do it quickly. Baseline Road Rapid Transit Corridor has been proposed by the city and included in its official plan, although its construction is over 10 years away and dependent on provincial and federal funding. Despite much opposition to its suitability and usefulness here, the city has completed its EA to construct separate sidewalks, cycle lanes on each side of Baseline and 2 bus lanes, a median and bus stops through the center. Some 14 properties along Baseline in City View have been identified for expropriation or partial expropriation for the BRT. The design of this proposed project does not support the BRT. There are 2 driveways proposed for each semi, which would result in 4 cuts to the curbs to replace 1. This would entail cars backing through pedestrian sidewalks and cycle paths, in addition to vehicles very near to one of the busiest intersections in the city. This Baseline Clyde intersection is slated to become even busier in the next few years due to the impending development. This project should be looked at as a whole. It should be designed to have a common driveway to accommodate residents from both buildings to provide less impact, easier snow removal, and better safety. City planners should be denying such applications until the entire site can be considered and assessed. Some new recent construction was allowed close to Baseline Road. When city planners were asked why the BRT requirements were not considered, they noted that some projects just got away from them, and these new places could still be slated for expropriation. Let's hope this isn't happening again. Thank you for your time and your consideration. That's from Jill and I. Thanks.
Great. Ms. Pratt, did you want to add anything? We saw you kind of jumping in and out.
I think she has trouble with her mic.
Looks like she's having a hard time. I see your hand up, but not in the meeting at this stage. Okay, so maybe I'll open up to the floor. Anyone from the panel have any questions or comments? Ms. Willis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I have a question really of staff relating to a comment that was made by the Community Association regarding lack of storm sewer capacity along Baseline Road. And I'm assuming because this is just a variance application at this point in time that there was a comment made that they will have to do a servicing report and a servicing and drainage report, sorry. And I'm assuming then that if there is an issue with when they come for their next semi-detached unit, that would be caught at that time, that if there was a severance involved, there would have to be evidence that there is sufficient capacity in the system to accommodate this. So what twigged this was the comment that said that city staff had indicated that there was not sufficient capacity in the system. And I just was wondering whether staff could comment on that.
Yeah, thank you for you, Mr. Chair. So as part of the circulation, our engineering staff did not comment on service capacity. And I'm not aware of issues related to that for the proposed development. In my opinion, considering that they are replacing the existing detached dwelling with one new set of semi-detached, in my opinion, it's not necessarily an issue in this case. I would also like to clarify that because there's an underlying plan of subdivision for these sites, they will not have to go through a severance application in order to, if they chose to have the lot severed. So just want to, in case that was an expectation that we would see that in the future, it's that the underlying plan of subdivision, there are technically 4 lots that could exist through that plan of subdivision. So okay, I just want to clarify that.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Mr. Wilder.
Ms. Gitchian, the question I have is, you can hear me. I wasn't present at the previous hearing that was adjourned, but there was concern with the oversized number of units being permitted on this location. How has that been addressed, if I may?
Absolutely. So, through Mr. Chair, the oversized dwelling units was relating to the proposed number of bedrooms, which was 5 for each the principal and the secondary dwelling unit. The applicant submitted revised plans, which showed that there's only 4 bedrooms proposed in each unit, and which therefore no longer meets the definition of oversized dwelling units, and therefore staff have no more concerns regarding that provision.
So if I may, thank you for that. Maybe to the applicant. So is this going to be, again, type of student housing? Is that what's being proposed here with 8 bedrooms?
Yeah, that's the homeowner's intent, I believe, is to rent it out to students. It is pretty close to Algonquin College, so it does serve pretty convenient for students. So yes.
So, when you've got that number of households in there, of course, that puts, certainly I can appreciate where the community is coming from in terms of, the number of people there, and in terms of, she was complaining about people behind, I guess, having problems with water pressure and the like. This is going to be a large project. This is multiple apartments here now. Okay, you had 10, and easily now you've got 8, but, so could easily be put back to 10 at a later date. Believe me, I've seen it happen. You'd subdivide one of the rooms. Next thing you know, it's 10 rather than 8 after the application's been approved. And that sort of concerns me. All right, thank you for that.
Okay, I just had a question for the applicant. So in this case, I think we know we have 4 lots of record in this case, 25 feet each as part of the standard city view layout. Is the severance line for the proposed semis, is that aligned with the current kind of 25-foot lot spacing, or is it offset?
It would be offset, I believe. The first severance would be at the Well, actually, no, you're correct. The first severance would be like right down the middle at 25.
Okay. So in this case, so if you did want to sell the units separately in the future, we have the existing lots of record and it aligns with the build line. So
For sure.
it would be designed so that you could sell each individual unit
Correct.
that way without consent. Okay. And I just had a bit of a question, I guess, potentially for Ms. Wilson from the Community Association. So in this case, I'm very familiar with the area. I grew up in the area, so know it very well. I know there is a number of existing semis along Baseline, including some townhouses just down, I think two lots down. I'd be curious, you talk about this as being overdevelopment for Baseline. I'd be curious what level of development or intensification would be appropriate in your mind for this location.
I think we're more concerned about the BRT running through and expropriating these people as soon as they get built, because it's the part of Baseline that's very thin. And if they're going to put this bus line down the center with all these other lanes and things, they've got to expropriate 14 places along there. And I think that's right in the area for expropriation. So that's one of our reasons for concern. We don't have a problem with the intensification. It's just that the infrastructure that goes along with it has to be fixed too. And so, like we said, when you're going from a house with 3 bedrooms to on the same property and 1 or 2 bathrooms, probably 1 in those days, but now you've got 32 bedrooms and 24 bathrooms. Something's got to give, right? So that's what we're concerned about. So if the infrastructure is going to be upgraded, then fine. We don't have a problem with, it's not the semis that we have a problem with. It's our infrastructure, the things like our water, our sewers. We don't have storm sewers, things like that. And the other thing is I don't think that those lots, from what I can see, are divided up into 25, because I know if you look at how it is, it's not on the 25 line mark, so they'd have to sever them. Plus you'd have to sever them if you want to sell half of it. So I think just because on lots of records doesn't mean that you don't have to sever if you are off of that line at all. So
yeah, if they were off the line, then they would have to come back for a consent to sever. And I imagine, as you mentioned, if there is a question about expropriation, I think in this case, if a consent were to come forward, I would imagine that the city would request a road widening as part of the consent application, specifically to avoid an expropriation. So but in this case, there's no consent before us, so we can expect that to continue, or that would come up at the time of a consent application if that were to happen. Yeah, I certainly hear your concerns about intensification in the area. There's a lot of towers going up just down the street as well. So it's certainly a big shift for the neighborhood that I'm very, very aware of, but okay, thank you.
We don't have a problem with it along the edge of our neighborhood like that. That's where we'd like to see it. But along with that, intensification has to come, the upgrades to the infrastructure, because it affects the people in here. Like people on Grant and Chippewa are already complaining to us about their water pressure. I'm over on Withrow and my water pressure is starting to go down. So it's like, those are the things that we're worried about. So if they are going to upgrade that's fine. But when they're just flopping in 32 bedrooms and 24 bathrooms, something's got to give. You go from 1 bathroom to 24, it's not the same. So And it is on the corner where there's a lot of development, the apartment buildings there, and it's the traffic thing, and it's the coming in and out and the little tiny driveway. Anyway, that's okay. Good. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess I'll just ask the question to staff quickly. It's my understanding that Baseline does, however, have storm sewers in this case, different from the rest of the neighborhood behind.
Mr. Chair, that's correct.
Okay, great. Mr. Wilder, I see you have your hand up. And you're on mute.
Sorry. I appreciate the concerns of the community association. I don't begrudge them the fact that certainly intensification brings problems with it. I mean, there's no question. However, what we're faced with today is just one variance to permit a reduced lot width from 9 meters to 7.63 meters. And that really is, just the one variance that's being requested. And they meet all the other standards that are required. So in this instance, notwithstanding the many points that have been raised by the community association, we're here really today to address really that one variance for Unit 1. Thank you. So I'll have to consider that.
Any other comments or questions from the panel? Ms. Willis? No? Okay. And I'll just have, I see your hand up, Ms. Kubaseki. Maybe go ahead and then we can move forward to, I imagine, a vote.
Yep. No, Mr. Wilder said it pretty much what I was trying to get at. Like at this time, we are requesting to reduce the lot width to 7.63 meters. And regarding the BRT, at this time, the right-of-way department has no concerns. The MTO has no concerns. So I can understand their concerns, but I don't see it how it's really relevant to this minor variance request.
Yeah. Okay, great. So with that in mind, I didn't see any other hands looking to speak. So I think we'll move ahead to a vote in this case. And we're down to just the single variance to permit a lot width of 7.63 for Unit 1, whereas the bylaw requires a minimum lot width of 9. So I'll call that all those in favor from the panel. Okay, that's 3, so that's unanimously granted in this case. So best of luck moving forward.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, now we'll move on to number 11, that's 450 Tremblay. The agent listed as Gassane.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, excellent.
Members of the panel, good evening.
Right, so we've made it. So I'm going to read the solemn declaration, the oath, and then we'll move forward. So do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing as instructed and was clearly visible and legible during that time?
I affirm.
Excellent. So we had you here before the panel before, and there was some questions about height, I understand, and I think potentially something else, but it sounds like those issues have been dealt with through revised site plans?
Correct. It was corrected because there was some confusion between the height of the townhouse and the height of semi-detached there. So Mr. Justin, our planner, he kindly explained all the difference, and it's being corrected through the architect. There was another issue with the site plan. There was minor difference between the site plan and the R4. So it's been corrected as well, and it's been approved by Mr. Justin.
Great. So the way I have it in front of me, it looks like there's no need for minor variances. What you've designed now is as of right. And so you're just seeking to subdivide the property into 2 parcels for those semis.
Correct.
Excellent. Okay. So any questions from the panel? I'll start with that. No, seeing none. So then I'll open up the floor to anyone who would like to speak either for or against this application to raise your hand at this time, and we'll bring you in. I don't have anyone listed on my speakers list, but we'll give it a chance just in case anyone changed their mind. Okay, and seeing no one coming forward, I think we can go straight ahead to a vote, given that there's no questions. So all those in favor of the severance as requested? All right, and we are unanimously granting your request.
Thank you. Thank you,
So,
everyone.
Best of luck clearing conditions, and we'll see you soon. All right, now we will jump to item number 12. That's 56 Starwood. So back to our city view. And I have Mr. Segreto listed as the agent in this case. Yes, there you are. All right, so I'll read you the oath. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing as instructed and was clearly visible and legible during that time?
I swear for it to be posted.
Great, thank you so much. All right, so I think we won't require a presentation in this case. It seems pretty much like City View Specials. So any questions or comments from members of the panel? No? Okay, seeing none, I'll then open the floor to members of the public that would like to speak.
We would like to speak again on, is this 56 Starwood?
It is, yes, I was expecting you. Perfect. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll take this one because I think Jill's having trouble with her mic. So
oh no,
this is really short. City View Community Association would also like to provide comments about 5658 Starwood tonight. We oppose again any application that does not meet the requirements of the existing bylaw. The property at 5658 Starwood Road does not meet these requirements. The requested variance is to facilitate the development of these new detached dwellings on undersized lots do not meet the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. We would like to say thank you to Mr. Segreto and his gang because they come and they talk to us about these things now, so we don't have as much of a problem with them. But we do have our normal problem, the infrastructure. We maintain that the infrastructure in City View still does not support this level of intensification. When infill occurs, lot coverage increases and the green space and trees that absorb stormwater are removed. Our community's drainage is affected. City View has no storm sewers. The city is currently working on a plan to improve the extensive drainage issues in City View. It should be noted that it's a 10-year project dependent on availability of funds. At the very least, the applicant should be reminded that they need to maintain the ditches and have culverts under their driveways. This is in order to help maintain the integrity of the rural drainage ditch system. This level of intensification also affects other infrastructure. The official plan recognizes that when areas are intensified, other infrastructure such as parkland, sidewalks, school capacity, and traffic, cycling, walkability require updating and improvements. The trees, it's good to see that more trees are actively being saved in City View. However, could the footprint not have been reduced to save tree number 5? It is good to note that the neighbor will receive 2 new trees when this tree 5 is cut down. However, we believe this is a city requirement. Thank you for consideration. Nancy and Jill, thanks.
All right, great. Jill, did you want to add anything? I think I see you in and out. No, okay. So I just had a quick question to staff. I understand in this case you have requested a condition of approval. I understand that this is what is, I assume, the new standard condition for City View related to stormwater management?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, great. So any questions or comments from the panel? No, seeing none. Okay, I didn't see any other hands up, but I did note that we do have the written comments from 62 Starwood Road. So we'll take those into note as we decide. And I would, given the listing of the questions that are here, I would recommend that they contact committee staff if they have questions about the process moving forward. So seeing no one else with a hand raised looking to speak, I think we can call the item forward for a vote. So all those in favor of the reduced lot width and area variances requested for 56 Starwood. That's all 3. So we have a unanimous approval in this case for you, Mr. Segreto.
Thank you so much. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Okay, so now I think we'll jump back to the top of our agenda. Number 1, that's 7025 Notre Dame in Orleans. And I have the agent listed as Poloni.
Hi, good evening.
Great. All right. Thank you and welcome. So I'll start off. I have the oath to read to you. So do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing as instructed and was clearly visible and legible during that time?
I affirm.
Great. Okay, so I understand that there's been, I think at the very least, a fair bit of back and forth on the conditions. So maybe I'll ask staff to go through their recommended changes to the conditions that have come forward in the last kind of 6-7 hours, and then we can go from there.
Pardon me. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So so this afternoon I was made aware of the letter that the applicant sent to Evode, who was the planner who authored the report. Evode's on holiday at the moment, so I'm speaking to this report. I was involved in pre-consultations with the property owner last year, so I'm pretty familiar with the file. And I spoke with the departments or my colleagues in the various departments that impose the conditions that the applicant has concerns with. So with regard to the applicant's letter that came in today outlining the conditions that they wanted to have removed, I can speak to all of them. Did you want me to just go through in order and
Sure, that might be the cleanest. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So condition number 1, the applicant noted that, or the agent, pardon me, noted that she believed there was a typo in the condition. So this is the one requiring that the owner satisfy the chief building official related to limiting distance. So this is related to the Ontario Building Code. So I spoke with the manager for Building Code Services in the East Branch, and they did confirm that there was a typo. So it should be the east property line. And this is related to the distance, again, from the east side of the building to the proposed severance line. So they're just required to provide an elevation drawing or some other evidence to the satisfaction of Building Code Services that it complies with limiting distance requirements under the Ontario Building Code. And that would be related to windows, et cetera, on that side of the house and their proximity to the proposed lot line.
Okay.
So we're recommending that condition remains. Building Code would like that condition to remain. The next condition, condition 2, was related to the accessory building. So if an accessory building needs to be accessory to a principal use, so if the lot is severed and the accessory building remains on the vacant lot, it's no longer accessible, or it's no longer accessory to anything. So it's not permitted to remain. We've had this one before on one of my files previously, and I mean, not that we're setting precedent, but this is a pretty straightforward one.
Pretty
if there's
standard.
if there's going to be an accessory building on a vacant lot. So again, Building Code Services would like that one to remain. With regard to condition 4, so with the removal, and this one is related to providing evidence to the planning department that there is a new driveway leading to a legal parking space. So this property previously had an attached garage on the east side of the building. The garage was removed, presumably in preparation for a future severance. Parking was relocated, I assume, either to the interior side yard or to the rear yard. So we're just asking for a site plan showing where parking is to be relocated on the lot in compliance with the zoning bylaw. So all we're looking for is a site plan showing where the required parking will be on the lot. So if that's in the rear yard, that's just all we're looking for. And again, that's related to the retained lot. Otherwise, I mean, it's quite a big lot. I understand that the easement for the shared driveway is going to go all the way into the rear yard. I don't anticipate that there's any issues with parking being reestablished in the rear yard, but we just like to confirm that that is where the parking will be relocated to. So just a site plan, even based on the existing survey. Conditions 5 and 7 are related to 2 separate requests from different branches of the planning department looking for a grading and drainage plan. My colleague Haley Murray, who's the forester, may be able to step in if I don't translate her comments to me properly, but condition 7 is the requirement for a grading and drainage plan that will be reviewed by one of our engineers. They're not looking for forestry information on that plan. They're just looking for the grading and drainage. The condition number 5 is requested by the forester, and they're specifically noting that the grading and drainage plan should contain the information from the tree information report related to tree locations and protection. So that's just forestry is just looking to see that that information is superimposed onto the grading and drainage plan so that they can confirm that the approved drainage plan or the grading and drainage plan that gets submitted to the engineer will account for the trees that need to be protected per the tree information report. So what else? Condition 6. So regarding independent storm, sanitary, and water service connected to city infrastructure. So this is going to require that each lot has service connections to the city sewers and water main. The applicant noted that the existing dwelling is connected to a dry well or sump pump and is not connected to storm service. So I think we should leave this in and let the engineer, like if the engineers deem that it's satisfactory to allow the existing lot or the retained lot to remain on the private sump, then that's fine. You know, if they don't need anything else from the applicant, then they can deem the condition satisfied. So they may not require that the retained parcel connect to stormwater. So if it's satisfactory to the engineers that they can clear that condition without that requirement, that's fine. But if there are issues for whatever reason related to the retained parcel not being connected to the stormwater, then that'll get flagged by the engineers. So, and then regarding condition 10 for the JUMA related to the driveway, the applicant had requested an easement agreement rather than a JUMA. I sort of paused on this one. So I think a JUMA would still be appropriate, given that we're not looking at just an easement for access. Like there's an asphalt surface driveway that is going to be jointly maintained by both owners of the retained and severed parcel. So an easement agreement would be more appropriate if the easement were entirely over one property for the benefit of the other, and it's just the other property who enjoys the easement doesn't have to maintain it. But in this case, because it's jointly maintained, because there is this requirement for the driveway to be surfaced in asphalt, I think it's more appropriate for a JUMA. So that's my summary.
That makes a lot of sense.
So yeah, if you need me to go back to any of them and clarify any points, I should have stopped after each one. My apologies. But
no worries. Okay. So then I've just got your revised report open as well. So I understand. So it looks like condition number 5 has been updated for the removal of the portion of the driveway between the front wall of the dwelling and the street. I assume that's to bring it into zoning conformity.
So that's correct. Let me just, I have a number of tabs open on my desktop here. I assume we all do. So yeah, that condition was just added. So the property is in Area A of Schedule 318 to the zoning bylaw. So they are actually permitted to have up to 1.8 meters of driveway located between the front wall of the house and the street. And they do have a portion of the driveway already in place. I think the applicant noted that it was 1.3 meters. However, it does need to be distinct from the rest of the driveway. So it can't just be paved in asphalt. It would need to be interlock pavers, just something distinct and not monolithic.
Right. And that's part of the newer obligations to delineate the walkway from the parking area.
That's correct, but they are permitted to park on that area too. They just can't add an additional walkway beside it. So it can be sort of a combination walkway or extended portion of the driveway. Yeah.
So it's not as restrictive as the restrictions in place, say in Westboro, but
that's correct.
Similar intent.
Yeah. This one is not within the infill area, so it's one of those the properties built before December 31st, 2013, and in Area A of Schedule 318 to the zoning bylaw, where you can have a small portion of your driveway between the front wall of the house and the street.
Right. Okay, and then we have an update to condition 9, showing the requirement to show the location of new planting for a 50 millimeter tree. So that's replacing another condition that was previously there. And then the right-of-way conditions 11 and 12 looks like they've been removed or addressed.
That's correct. Yeah, they were intended to be a comment, and so we've moved into the comment section and shortened them. And the right-of-way department wanted to note as well that that a private approach permit is required for any alteration to a private approach, whether that's widening or reducing the width. So,
right. Okay, bit of a marathon. Any questions from members of the committee at this time? Ms. Willis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not a major concern, just a bit of clarification. I wanted to ask the applicant the reason for the easements going right from the front property line to the rear property line, and if in fact, because it's supposed to, as I understand it, be joint pedestrian as well as vehicular access, whether the intent is to take the driveway right to the rear lot line.
Thank you. So yeah, the intent is not to take the driveway right to the rear lot line. It will end at the existing rear yard parking on the retained lot. It is for site access for supplies or equipment. The lots are quite deep, and so we wanted to make sure that both property owners had full access to both lots, but it won't be paved.
But in that instance, is that to get vehicles to the rear of the properties, which I would assume would impede the ability to fence the common property line if that easement has to remain open past where the pavement goes? Is that your intent?
I don't believe there's any intent to fence or pave. I believe that the intent is to keep it open.
Okay, just curious. Thank you.
Observing that possibility. Any other questions from the panel? No? Okay, so I see at least one hand raised in the attendees. So I invite you to come forward. So I don't have anyone on my speakers list, but I saw the hand go up. Feel free to unmute yourself and provide your comments.
There's a possibility that the person with their hand up is the property owner. I know he is in attendance, but I don't see him in the main room. He might be as a attendee.
Okay. Thank you for that. So I'm not hearing anyone, so we'll give you a few more seconds. Ms. Poloni, is there anything, having heard that whole conversation, I understand there was some back and forth on the conditions, are you content with how things have landed and the conditions as they're worded at this stage, or is there more kind of questions or comments that you had on those?
I do have a couple comments or extra questions, I guess, now that we have some clarifications. In terms of condition 1, I appreciate the fact that instead of west, it's supposed to be the east property line, so the proposed severance. But it's still our opinion that the interior side yard setbacks are compliant, and that side of the building has no windows above the basement level. And so we don't see how how dealing with the building code services for this severance application would be applicable. But I haven't seen this condition put in place before, so I was just wondering if that has any merit, the fact that there are no windows above the basement level, and we are compliant on the interior side yard setbacks.
So I can speak to the, could you speak to that? So so it's not related to a zoning. I'm not sure why my camera's fuzzy here. I'm sorry about that, folks. It's not related to the zoning bylaw in terms of setbacks. This is related to Ontario Building Code. And so before the severance would be approved, we just need to make sure that the limiting distance complies. And if it doesn't, then the window would be required to, any windows on that side would be required to be sealed. Yeah, Building Code Services hasn't seen any of elevation drawings of the side of the property or photographic evidence, so they are just covering their bases to make sure. So all they're looking for is an elevation drawing or some other evidence to their satisfaction that there are no windows that would trigger the limiting distance requirement on that east side of the property. And as I said, the condition should be revised such that it says the east side, not the west side.
Yeah, but should be relatively easy to clear, it sounds like, in this scenario.
Yep.
Yep.
So would in your opinion, would photographic evidence be sufficient, or would they be requiring a full design drawing?
I would start with the photographic evidence that would come through me, and then or a vote, and we could forward it to Building Code Services. And if there's additional information that they require, they would let us know.
Other than that one, other than condition 1, I believe condition 4, I just want to clarify what the actual requirement would be. Again, like, would photographic evidence be sufficient to show where the existing driveway has been extended to and where that parking space is now being used, or is a full site plan of the retained lot necessary?
Yeah, so a site plan of the retained lot to show that where you've relocated the parking to, because with the garage removed and with pre-severance, it looks like there was parking in the interior side yard. So we just want to see that it's been relocated on the lot, even if it's just in the rear yard, just confirmation that it's there.
So just in regards to the grading and drainage plan, which is mentioned in both in the revised report number 6 and number 8, I guess I was just wondering if it would be possible to combine those conditions, because they're essentially asking for the same grading and drainage plan, just one with tree information report information on it. And so I was wondering if there was any need to have both conditions, or if we could combine the wording into a single condition.
I think it would be appropriate to leave them as separate conditions because they're cleared by separate staff. One is cleared by the engineers and one is cleared by forestry.
And then the last item would just be for that number 7, where the wording specifically says the independent storm, sanitary, and water services connected to city infrastructure. It was really just the wording that I was concerned with. If we have the opportunity to amend the portion that says connected to city infrastructure, to be able to open up the discussion of maintaining the existing services for the retained lot, I think that would be favorable to myself and the client.
So the conditions are drafted by senior staff, and they're approved by legal services. So we don't really have the authority to alter them, especially with regard to servicing. So as I said, I think if there isn't the connection to city stormwater, but there's no issue with the fact that there's no connection, the engineers could deem it complete. Like, they're not going to, if there's no issue with it not being connected to stormwater, they're not going to just arbitrarily require the connection to the stormwater system. If they're satisfied that the retained parcel is adequately serviced based on the existing conditions, then they can deem that condition satisfied. But it's a condition where the wording is approved by legal staff. So I would hesitate to remove that, especially considering it may be an engineering concern that I can't speak to.
I guess my concern with that is that if we agree to the comments as they're, or the conditions as they're written, then that's, I don't want the client to be imposed or be restricted to upgrading that retained parcel's infrastructure, regardless of what city engineering sees. I was hoping that there would be some wording that we would be able to add to the effect of having a review done, or that it would be deemed adequate by city civil, but not that it has to be connected to city infrastructure.
I'm not the engineer that imposed it. Unfortunately, I can't comment on it. I'll just reiterate that I don't, like, not being an engineer, I'm not comfortable supporting a revision to the wording of it. Again, there may be some engineering considerations that I don't know about. So
yeah, I'm just looking at the condition myself. It doesn't necessarily require connection. Its primary concern, it looks like in this case, is to ensure that the services are not crossing the severance line. And that each parcel has its own independent storm, sanitary, and water services connected to city infrastructure. I think we see it all the time that there is not always storm infrastructure that is connected to city services. So I wouldn't necessarily be concerned about it in this case. But I think I'm with you, Ms. Glazero. I would defer to engineering in this case, because there may be a scenario where pre and post flows with the intensification on the other lot, that it may change the circumstance of this existing condition to require such a connection. Okay. Any other questions, Ms. Poloni?
No, that's all my concerns.
Okay. Anything else from members of the committee? No. And I see Marc Laframboise, you have joined us. Is there anything you wanted to either speak either for or against this application?
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is, I just need clarification on number 2 about accessory buildings. I don't know if that was, if I missed that part. I'm trying to understand which accessory building we're talking about here.
Yeah, so it looks like it's the accessory dwelling or the accessory unit that's on, I guess, the right-hand side or the eastern side of the property.
The storage shed by the...
Yes, so it's my understanding, once the severance is in place, then that shed would no longer be accessory to a building on that same lot. And therefore it cannot exist on its own, because it can't, an accessory dwelling or accessory structure can't be a primary unit on a structure, on a property. So it must be removed prior to the severance being put in place to allow an accessory structure to truly be accessory in this case.
So we have to remove that accessory building or relocate it on the other parcel.
Correct.
Until the construction, and then we can get our, the severance done in order to do the building. So we can't, we're planning to move it anyhow to build, because it's going to be in the way. But I'm just trying to understand. It was because we got a portable shelter logic right now, which we're planning to move, but I was not aware of it. So the shed, the storage shed, which is I think it's about 8 by 12 or 8 by 14, needs to be relocated. It's a condition that has to be before, in order to get the severance.
Correct. So either it needs to be removed or relocated to the lot that has the existing primary dwelling, as long as it's a complying accessory structure in that case for the other unit. And then you can create your severance line and create the new lot. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for the clarification.
Great. Okay. I don't see anyone else either wanting to speak either for or against this application. So barring any further questions, I think we can go to a vote on this. In this case, it's just the severance. We have no variances before us. So I think I'll call the vote. All those in favor of the consent as well as the requested easements as required. Perfect. So we are unanimously granting the application, subject to the conditions that we've gone through, I think, fairly extensively.
Thank you.
So best of luck moving forward. All right. So now I think we'll move to item number 4. That's 2243 Lawn. I'm looking for the agent here, is noted as Ferrante. I see an Alessandro Ferrante there. If you want to unmute and turn on your camera, there you are.
Oh, Mr.
Excellent.
Chair.
So I do have the oath that I'll read to you first, and then we can move forward. So do solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing as instructed and was clearly visible and legible during that time.
I swear.
Excellent. So I think in this case, we are going to ask for a brief presentation if you've got one put together, and then we'll go ahead.
Yeah, so I believe there's a PowerPoint. Now, do I share that or is that?
So it's usually our committee coordinator that will pull that up. There we go. Perfect.
Yeah, so go ahead. So this is property 2243 Lawn Avenue, and here to discuss a minor variance for an accessory structure that's going to be located at the rear lot of the property. So this is just sort of the front elevation. We can go to the next slide. Essentially, this is being proposed as a minor variance in order. One of the main reasons is for storage of a shelter of a motor home of the owner, as well as there's an existing garage on the lot, the west side of the lot, that's going to be removed.
Mr. Chair, did we take the oath for this one?
We did, yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so essentially, yeah, so the new garage will be located at the rear of the lot and the existing garage will be removed. The variances that are being requested are area and as well as height. The height will be required due to the size of the motor home. We can go to the next slide. This is just outlining the variances. Next slide, please. So here's a site plan. So on the left here, we just have Geo Ottawa screenshot showing the highlighted property. You can see where the existing garage is. That will be removed, and at the rear of the new site plan is the proposed structure. So it's going to be respecting the all the setbacks. We did have some concerns from the forestry department for the original design. As you can see, there's two trees in question here. The design was altered to ensure that they were not that they would be protected during construction. We can go to the next slide. So the rationale behind the minor variances that we're asking for, we do realize that the bylaws at 55 meters squared for an accessory building, we're asking for quite a larger amount at 157. We would like to point out that this is, as the bylaw says, that it's the rear yard coverage is much lower than the 50% as permitted. So we're at 26% of the rear lot for the garage currently. This is due to the size of the lot. So we have a large lot here, and the client is asking for this variance. Yeah, essentially, but the scale of the structure would be suitable compared to the neighboring properties. As if you look back at the site plan, a lot of the overall building coverage is higher than this. So regarding the height, as mentioned earlier, it's going to be required for the storage of securing the motorhome. This still will be lower than any of the two-story structures in the surrounding area. The existing garage will be demolished, and the proposed garage will be used for the client's storage as well as tenants parking. So this will reduce the use of street parking, creating a safer environment for the neighbors. In this area, there's a concern for street parking with developments with multi-units. So in this case here, we'll be helping that cause. With the garage also at the rear of the lot, you're not going to see it won't be, and further away from the actual house itself. It won't be sort of like noticeable. So the properties in the surrounding area of similar structures, the one actually right behind 2242 Midway Avenue has a garage at the similar size. It's something we also wanted to point out. So in conclusions, based on the size of the lot, the request for the lot area and height would not differ from the overall surrounding area development. So we'd like to ask for these variances and hope that you consider allowing these. So
Great. Okay, thank you. I just had a question, I think, before I open it up to the rest of the committee. I notice kind of in the neighborhood and the adjacent properties, kind of to the east and to the north, there are kind of similar structures towards quite close to the rear of the yard, which is fairly unusual, I think, in the grand scheme of things, especially given the scale. Can you speak to the units that are kind of behind and to the east about kind of, are they single story, two-story, and what is their kind of use in that area?
So the unit directly behind this property, I just mentioned 2242 Midway, has a garage around the same size that we're requesting. And it seems like it's used as a storage / garage structure. The direct neighboring unit towards, I guess, the east, or I guess if you're looking at the property towards the right, it seems like it was a development that was townhomes. So there's some buildings in the rear. It should be noted that the structure that's being proposed wouldn't be blocking any windows, as there's no windows to that direct neighbor side. If that's a concern for them.
Okay. And the garage and the adjacent kind of units, are they single story or two-story?
I believe they're two-story.
Okay. I'll open it up. Is there any questions from members of the committee? Yeah, Ms. Willis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'm just wondering why, I think I read in your report that the RV that's to be stored in this structure is 11 feet high. Why does the building have to be 20 feet high?
That just has to do with the actual measurement of I guess the midpoint of the roof line. Mm-hmm. So in order to get the actual, you need a 12-foot high garage door, and then a roof on top of that. So the actual height of the garage would have to be higher than, I guess, the garage door, and to allow space for the unit to actually get in.
But wasn't that based on the pitch of the roof of the shed?
Yes. So the measurement of the actual garage would be from the midpoint of the hip roof that's being proposed to the average grade. So that's where we're getting that variance request. The garage door would if you go back to the elevation, you can see it, but unless we go with a flat roof, we can reduce the height. So you can see on the right there, you probably can't read that dimension there, but that's the requested height.
Okay, so that's to accommodate that particular vehicle, that is as low as the building can be unless you give it a flat roof, if I understand what you're saying.
Yes, essentially.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I do have a member of the public registered to speak. I think it's listed as Gordon and Debbie Wima, but so I'll invite them to come forward if they're with us. If not, and regardless, I'll open up the floor to anyone else who would like to speak either for or against this application to put your hand up and let us know what you think. No, I'm not seeing anyone. No, registered to speak, but I don't see them with us either in panelist mode or in the attendees. So, okay, given that, any other final questions either from the panel or from the applicant before I think we go ahead to a vote? Ms. Willis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say that I actually disagree with staff on this particular one, and that I think height is a big issue in that location when it's adjacent to residential units from which we have received a written objection. So I think the combination of the height of the building and the size of the building are just too large and have too big an impact on the adjacent property owners. And I don't feel that I can support this application.
Mr. Wilder, any thoughts or comments?
Sorry. Yeah, I feel the same way. I just feel that notwithstanding this is a deep lot, notwithstanding that it's a distance from the principal residence, the fact that it's such an overwhelming structure, the fact that it's so much larger than the principal residence itself, the fact that it's a hip, well, in fact, not a flat roof, and in fact, you got the additional height here as well, which I would really have an issue with this application. I just feel that there must be some other way to, and I appreciate the applicant's desire to park his vehicle on the property, but to build a structure this size to accommodate that that vehicle, I just don't feel it's appropriate. You know, the footprint, as is pointed out by planning, is much larger than the main building, the principal building on the property. And I appreciate the distance, but notwithstanding that, I still feel that it's not desirable in terms of a structure that's in this particular location, in terms of its impact that it could have on the abutting property owners. Mr. Wima isn't here, but I've read Mr. Wima's comments, and I appreciate his concerns. So I will not be supporting this application either.
Okay. I actually had a question of staff. So in this case, I'm assuming it's an older build that we talk about in your planning report, the difference between the primary residence and the proposed accessory unit. Was that assessed? I assume it was assessed against the built structure and not against the kind of zoning permission for an ultimate build out?
Yes, yes, Mr. Chair, that is correct.
Okay. Did you all in your analysis take a look at what the kind of permitted footprint would be and how that might affect the percentage size of the unit?
No, I did not consider the what could potentially be built there. I could take a look right now.
I don't think we'll turn on it. So it sounds like we have at the very least 2 dissents, most likely. So I think, thank you for that. I think I'll jump in. I think, strangely enough, I think I went in assuming that the size was kind of overdone in this case. However, given the very specific circumstance, I think in this case, we've got the garage to the rear and then the units kind of in the rear yard, or what would be a traditional rear yard to the east. I think I am actually prepared to support the one variance for area of the accessory building. However, I think I'm with my fellow panel members on the height, that effectively a 2-story structure that far in the rear is potentially problematic in this scenario. So I will be, I guess in this case, likely dissenting in part, given that I would be prepared to permit the area of the accessory building to be increased, but I'm not necessarily ready to support the height that's requested. So I think I'll call it for a formal vote, however. So all those in favor of the variances in this case. So I'll put myself up as a partial, as noted. So it looks like Mr. Ferrante, it looks like the application has failed and is not, in this case, going to be supported by this committee.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your submissions this evening, and you'll receive your decision super. So I think the only thing left on our agenda is item number 7. So I'll ask the question to see if we have our agent that has hopefully joined us this evening.
Mr. Chair, he does not seem to be online. I have reached out to him via email and phone call, and there was no answer.
All right. Well, I'm assuming that there is extenuating circumstances related to that. So I will put the question, I guess, to committee staff. It's my understanding, I think, that we would push this application to the next panel or to the next meeting.
Correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so that would push us, remind me when the next meeting is, the 17th of May?
That's right.
Excellent. Okay, so I don't think we need a motion to adjourn this item. I think it happens kind of as of right, given that no one is here to speak to it. So we will, I think, automatically push that to May 17th. All right, so that is the end of our agenda. So in our second last meeting of at least part of this panel that is here, we're soon to be, as of next meeting, we'll truly lame ducks in our last meeting of this. So thank you everyone this evening. Thank you, Member Wilder, for joining us and making sure that we have quorum. And 20 after 8, we did relatively well on speed. So thank you, everyone. I will release you into the ether of the night.